Howdy, all you tiny people that live in the confines of my computer. It me, again. And today is going to be another stinky little nerd video where I talk about something I'm really passionate about. Today I'm going to be going through and just kind of naming the stuff in my, pitch for a new Marvel universe. I will be making individual, franchise videos at some point. I'm probably going to start with Spider-Man. For example, currently for, what I have written already, there's, Captain America, there's Spider-Man, there's an Avengers film, there's a Fantastic Four thing, X-Men, Thor, Hulk, a Silver Surfer movie, and those are all there. So I'm, going to go through those in this video. But then later, I'll sit down and make a Captain America-specific video, and I'll talk about the movies, I'll talk about the show, I'll talk about, the storylines, and then I'll do that for Spider-Man, I'll do that for Fantastic Four, I'll do that for the X-Men, I'll do that for everything. And then, at some point, whenever I get it written better, because currently I just have, bullet notes and, main plot points, whereas later there's going to be, an actual, small script, or, the backbone of one, I guess, one to build off of, where I can actually talk about what's going to happen. So, for now, I'm just going to read all the stuff that I have. These are not in a particular order. They're, there's a year associated with each movie, such as the first Spider-Man movie taking place in 2002, or, the first Captain America taking place in 1944, that sort of thing. So, there is time associated with the individual film or show. However, them coming out in order doesn't matter. And also, there are some stories that lead to the same thing. For example, the first Avengers is a, Infinity War style thing. So, there's a team up there, or one of the Fantastic Four movies is the Fantastic Four working with another... So, that happens, but that's not, the main focus. That's not what the point is. So, the first Captain America doesn't set up Spider-Man. The second Spider-Man movie doesn't set up Hulk, you know what I mean? I'm building a universe that is a bunch of individual franchises that sometimes group up. I'm not building a big MCU-style thing where everything is... Spider-Man 2 is not setting up Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange doesn't have to team up with Daredevil and Captain America. You know what I mean? So, there's the warning on that. I'm just going to go down the list as I currently have them, which is the thing I've edited last is up top. So I'm just going to go down those. I'm just going to name the film. Maybe I'll be oh, here's what it's about. Talk about the year a little, but I don't have, the backbone script yet. The thing I edited last was the Captain America pitches. The first film takes place in 1944. It's plain and simple, just a backstory for Steve and Bucky. A lot of Peggy and Steve being together. Red Skull is hinted at, but he doesn't show up. It is mostly just US versus the Axis powers sort of gimmick. It's treated like a war movie. It's treated like an actual, movie made for, a war or something. Then, there's a show that takes place between 1942 and 1944, which are stories of Cap and Bucky during the war, which is told through the voice of Peggy reading letters from Steve and Bucky to her nephew, who will matter way later. But I thought that was a cool way of writing a reason to tell those stories. Second Captain America movie, New World Order. Steve wakes up in the year 2000, because I felt 44 to 2000 is a long time, but it's not I don't want all of the modern movies to take place in 25, 24, because I feel like that makes it where there's less room to be creative. Red Skull is the main villain, and he reveals Bucky as the Winter Soldier. Couple big plot points. One of the big ones is that Bucky, under the Red Skull's influence, is going to kill Peggy in front of Steve, which is gonna cause Steve to have this big moral dilemma. Red Skull's taken down and put into the raft, however Bucky escapes. Then there is a second show, Captain America and the Falcon, which takes place between 2006 and 2007. Introduce Sam, build him up as a protege of sorts, have him and Steve work together, mostly against just like Hydra stuff, have it be not like a buddy cop, I guess, because I have another show that I want to be a buddy cop show, but like have it be the Sam and Steve show, have it be them working together. And then there's big lore plot points that are in there that don't make sense yet, so I'm going to try to skip over those. Captain America, The Zola Protocol, which is movie 4. Wait, am I crazy? Did I skip something? Am I insane? Am I crazy? I skipped over Winter Soldier. Okay. New World Order is movie 2. Movie 3 is Winter Soldier. That's the one with Bucky. Movie 2 doesn't have Bucky in it. Captain America and the Falcon. Just read that, yeah. Zola Protocol takes place in 2010. Main villain is Arnim Zola, the name, with a side villain of Crossbones, who will show up a couple more times. Bucky's in control of himself about halfway through this film. He is no longer stuck in the... He still has his little, like, fits of not being in control, but he overall has a control over himself. Bucky and Cap learn to work together, and Zola creates the Mad Bomb, which, if you don't know what the Mad Bomb is, in the comics, and they had to have put it in like a show at some point. It's been done by a couple different people. Long story short, they make a bomb that has chemicals in it, and whenever it blows up, all of the people who are in the vicinity go insane and will attack one another, which I think is a fun way for Steve and Bucky, and Sam is in the movie as well. It's his like film introduction, I guess. But having them have to face civilians right after Bucky gets out of being the Winter Soldier, I think that's a really interesting thing, because that way you have to test Steve's morals, but you also have to test Bucky's ability to not hurt innocent people. I think that's fun. And then Captain America 5 takes place in 2012, the Howling Commandos movie. Sam, Bucky, Steve, and Natasha are the Howling Commandos in this. The main villain is MODOK. The main, like, big plot points are going to be halfway through. Sam is going to have this big injury caused by MODOK, where Sam is going to lose the lower half of his left leg. He will get a prosthetic, and it'll be... I think a lot of times Sam Wilson doesn't get put into... At least not while Steve's alive. After Steve dies, it changes, but while Steve is like... Or Steve doesn't have to die. While Steve is Captain America, Sam kind of never goes through anything. And I don't like that. I like heroes having consequences for the things they do or don't do. So I would really like for Bucky or Cap to make a mistake that leads to Sam fighting MODOK alone, and that leads to Sam losing the lower half of his leg. He will get a prosthetic and stuff. He will be okay. But I feel like that will also give him and Bucky like a back and forth sort of thing, because they will both be an amputee of one item. And I think that could be really interesting. And then Captain America Under Siege is the 6th film. Takes place in 2015. The Commandos are in Russia, trying to make a friendship with the Thunderbolts. Whereas Steve is alone. He is not in New York. He is in Florida. He's attacked by the Taskmaster. The film ends with Taskmaster and Cap fighting again, and Cap winning, but Taskmaster then blows himself up, destroying the Courtney Campbell Bridge. The Courtney Campbell Bridge is the biggest bridge in Florida. I think the idea of a big, populated area being destroyed by a villain who is kind of a sore loser can be something to really mess with Steve. His team wasn't there, and he couldn't get the job done. Is that going to cause him some, like, trauma, some issues? And it could also be a PTSD sort of thing, because it's a villain causing a huge explosion that's going to hurt innocent people, whereas 2 movies prior, that was what Zola did with the Mad Bomb. And I think that could be really interesting. Currently, that's what I have written for Captain America. They wouldn't all be like back to back to back to back. And you don't have to make movies back to back to back. You can like have time between films, and like they take place in different times, but like you can take a break. Like if we filmed the first Captain America in 2025 and it came out in 2026, we don't have to make the next movie for like the next year. Like you can take a break. So that's my pitches for Captain America films currently. Move on to the next one, which is Spider-Man, where there is the most stuff because that's my favorite superhero and I wrote so fucking much for this character. I love Spider-Man. The first film is Spectacular Spider-Man First Flight. Takes place in 2002. The Vulture's the main villain. The main storyline for Vulture is he has cancer. He wants to keep providing for his family. He goes to Oscorp, gets some genetic mutations done, and he starts out as just like old school, I have wings, I'm just a guy. And then he slowly becomes more of that noir version of the Vulture that's decrepit and kind of batshit crazy. He will agree to do an interview with Peter Parker, not knowing Peter is Spider-Man. So that will be fun. Shocker is a secondary villain. In this film specifically, he's just going to be a random villain who like robs a bank and then Peter stops him. I also love whenever the Shocker is a Southern guy because you don't see Peter interacting with many villains that aren't like Northern American. So I like the idea of like a slightly chubby Southern Shocker. Also, this is Peter's origin film. You don't have to. I would prefer it not to be the same as like every other origin film. Maybe instead of having the moment of great power, great responsibility being something that we learn with him, maybe have a thing where Ben goes to say it like with great power comes, and then he cuts him off. Yeah, great responsibility, Ben. I know, as if it's a thing he's been told 100 times. And I want the relationship between him and Ben and him and May to be like the most important part for Peter's like go through. So there's that. Build up Goblin a shitload. Do not show him being a bad guy. So there's that. Spider-Man Freshman Year is the first show. It will take place over his first year of being Spider-Man. The Vulture will be locked up in the raft, whereas Peter is going up against Tombstone's gang. I love Tombstone. I love Spider-Man versus the Mob. I think that's always really cool. Whether it be Kingpin or Tombstone or Hammerhead, I love that sort of storyline. So a little show about his first year as Spider-Man being wrapped around Tombstone's gang. I think that could be really fun. More hints with Goblin, hints that the gang is like somehow connected to Oscorp. Build up the romance between Peter and Gwen a lot, and also build up the relationship between Peter and Harry and his almost fatherly relationship with Norman, because I think that's very important. I think Spider-Man versus the Goblin without the relationship of Harry Osborn doesn't matter. The relationship between Harry and Peter, and sometimes Peter and Norman, is super important to the character and super important to the bad things that the Goblin will do to Peter. But yeah, there's that. Next film, Spectacular Spider-Man Curtain Call. Takes place in 2003. Mysterio's your main villain. He's Quentin Beck. He is Peter's theater teacher. Early on in the film, he's going to have a big play of his that is meant to make him a star. Like a star, like a actual famous person out of it. It is ruined by a returning Shocker who now has his gauntlets and stuff. Ruins the play, and this causes Quentin to go a little bit fucking insane because he has planned the play, he has acted in it, he has written it, he did everything for it, and it was stopped by the Shocker. So his main villainy throughout is going to be him being too much of a showman, and it's going to be him going after the Shocker, which makes it seem like he's going to be a hero, and then he isn't. He gets his powers by doing shit with Oscorp. They're going to be pretty big in this first trilogy. Build up Goblin more. There's going to be a couple fight scenes. There's going to be Peter versus Shocker, in which Shocker is going to escape, but not win. There's going to be Peter versus Quentin as Mysterio. I think that fight needs to be That fight needs to be Peter learning how to deal with his spider sense, because a lot of films just kind of have him do it. I really liked in, what was the movie? Far From Home. Not a tremendous Spider-Man movie. It's not bad, but it's not, like, the best. And I loved the way it did, like, Peter having to learn how to use the spider sense and stuff. At the end of the film, you have Peter working with the Shocker against Quentin as Mysterio, because Mysterio is way too fucking powerful between his tricks and his powers. He's just not gonna work. Close to the end, Shocker sends Peter away after they have beaten Mysterio. He then gets over him with his gauntlets and kills him. He kills Mysterio. This is the first real death in this franchise, other than with... Because we see Ben die, of course, but after that we don't see Vulture die. Vulture doesn't kill people because he goes a little stupid, but like he still cares for humanity. In this movie, Quentin wants to attack Shocker. He doesn't want to kill him. And Shocker hasn't killed anyone up to this point. Peter hasn't killed... There's been no death other than Ben. And this is the first time Peter has to deal with the idea of a villain dying. Which at first he's like, okay, cool, but then it hits him. A, that was my teacher. B, that man kind of got dealt the wrong hand. He made poor decisions, but like he wasn't a terrible human. And Shocker escapes. Peter has to deal with that. And that's when Captain Stacy finds Peter as Spider-Man. He does not know Peter as Spider-Man, but he finds him in the building with Mysterio destroyed as Shocker leaves, and he's somewhat understanding. He doesn't attack Spider-Man. He understands that Spider-Man's the reason the Vulture was taken in. Spider-Man helped in this situation, and also there's like fucking... Spider-Man didn't destroy Quentin's entire fucking head with like a punch or something. So he lets Spider-Man go and says that all of the damage was done by the Shocker, which is going to cause J. Jonah Jameson to be like, is the police force evil, Spider-Man 3, Spectacular Spider-Man, same stitch. 2005 is the time it takes place. Green Goblin is your main villain. Shocker shows up in the early part of the film and steals money. Spider-Man's chasing him, and he simply tells him, I'm good. I'm leaving. Fuck all that. The Goblin's coming to town. I'm good. Nobody knows what the fuck that means, other than like some villains. For example, Tombstone is out of town. Tombstone left. Shocker left. Most of Tombstone's gang is gone. Everyone runs away from town because of this supposed goblin. Have Norman have these moments where he's just Norman, talking to Peter in like a fatherly way, but then have it swap from that scene to him as like an old school goblin on a glider, just a guy with bombs and shit, a little crazy, and have him going around destroying things. And then he has a fight with Spider-Man, and he just narrowly loses, but he doesn't get caught. Then we get a scene of him mutating into more of what the Ultimate Universe's Goblin was, just a giant hulking figure. Because Peter has had to deal with a villain who was tricking him, a villain who could fly, and now he's dealing with a villain who's way fucking stronger than him, and he hasn't had that before. Close to the end, we have the famous Goblin dropping Gwen thing. We have Peter save her. She doesn't die. We'll come back to that in a moment. He then has to fight the Goblin through Oscorp Tower, barreling through. Gwen and Harry both find out that he's Spider-Man from this. He gets Goblin down, he beats him. It's a long fight. I have like a choreography thing in my head. I'm not going to go too into it. He beats Goblin. He slowly reverts into Norman, and he's battered and bruised. He's bloody, he's broken. Harry's a little hurt, Gwen's a little hurt. And that's when Captain Stacy comes in, and he sees Spider-Man, and he sees his daughter, one of his daughter's friends, and Norman Osborn, who they don't know is the Goblin, battered. And that's when he starts to hate Spider-Man. Because his daughter's hurt in a room with Spider-Man. What the fuck? This is the end of the Goblin trilogy. Afterwards, we hear from Harry, who apologizes for the whole situation with his dad. He tells Peter that he's here for him and that he loves him. You're my best friend, blah, 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 blah. Gwen breaks up with Peter. She can't handle the idea of being in danger all the time. In the first two films, she would go out of her way to help with dangerous things, but she was never forced into a dangerous situation. Whereas here, she was kidnapped and almost murdered. And Peter's going to take that really poorly. Peter is going to be really not cool after that. He's going to have a bit of a dark segment of his life. The next show in the Little Spider-Man universe is Black Cat. The show will take place between 1999 and 2005. It will show her backstory. It will show her ties to the mob and make sure she is still kind of a kleptomaniac. She is not a hero yet. She's not a hero. She really isn't somebody that the Spider-Man from the first three movies would associate with. But going into this segment of his life where he's in a dark place and he's hurting and he's not opening up to people, having somebody who only knows him as Spider-Man might be the thing to do. After that film, we're going to have Spider-Man Last Hunt. I wonder who that's about. It takes place in 2007. Craven's your main villain. There's going to be a lot of shit that happens in this film. First of all, there's going to be a point where Craven trank darts Peter. Okay, so Craven vs. Peter 1 happens. Craven loses. He goes to Miles Warren. He gets some genetic upgrades. He comes back. He does not turn into a big fuzzy creature. Spectacular. That was like your only L as with villains. And then in their second fight, Peter is going to lose. He's going to be trank darted, and then Ben's grave is going to be dug up, and Peter's going to be buried in it. Peter's going to be fucking livid. He is going to bust out of said grave, whatever, and then he's going to beat the fuck out of Craven. He's also in the black suit whenever he comes up. Symbiote and what have you. He nearly kills Craven. Black Cat stops him from doing that. As he leaves, it zooms out of the sewer, zooms back into it a couple hours later, and there's police tape everywhere. Craven's body is there with a huge hole in it, and then we see a tail fly through the screen and take out one cop. The Scorpion took out Craven. Then we have Spider-Man All Grown Up, which is from 2006, to 2008. The latter half of the show will be Symbiote Spider-Man, because he gets that in the last movie. This show is going to be the end of the Tombstone segment, because he comes back and takes over pretty much the entire city. Peter and Kat have to work together to take him down. Peter is in a fit of rage after a big plot point that happens in the last movie, which I didn't bring up for spoilers for the next thing. Spider-Man Symbiosis, movie 5, takes place in 2008. Scorpion is your main villain. Scorpion puts Felicia in a coma via his poison. Peter almost kills him, removes the symbiote, and fights him again. And after removing the symbiote, he kind of goes farther than he did the first time. He gets even closer to killing Scorpion, paralyzing him from the neck down out of pure anger. Peter didn't need the symbiote to be angry. He didn't need the symbiote to do bad things. It was an excuse for him. He didn't need it to do bad things. He does not kill Scorpion. He does paralyze him, which is kind of worse. And then we have Spider-Man Amensalism. Amensalism is kind of the opposite of a symbiotic relationship. It's kind of like the idea of two things that are healthy. It's a Venom movie. Woohoo! Takes place in 2010. Eddie Brock has been introduced in Spider-Man 2 as the city's biggest journalist. And then in the last movie, Peter took his spot while under the influence of the black suit. Eddie's pissed. He hates Peter, but the symbiote is really using Eddie to get back to Peter at this point, for now. Close to the end of the film, Peter and Brock have to work together to get civilians from this like destroyed building. Peter and Eddie both don't want to kill innocent people. They both save everyone. But Venom is crushed by the building and thought to be dead, which isn't real. Venom Lethal Protector is your next show. Oh yeah, also at the end of Amensalism, Peter and Felicia are married because I like Spider-Man and Black Cat being together. Venom Lethal Protector is a show that takes place between 2010 and 2016. It takes place in California. Eddie is slowly learning to use Venom correctly and without harming people that are innocent. Venom learns to... They become Venom. The symbiote loves Eddie. Eddie loves the symbiote. They become Venom together forever. And the main villain is the Tinkerer, because I think the idea of this old scientific mind being the villain to an alien who is controlling a jock is like a really good mesh. The Tinkerer is like your main villain in the background who grows over the whole branch of the whole series, and there'll be like little hints here and there of like another thing. During this show, we will be introduced to Eddie doing journalism and taking notes from and for one Cletus Cassidy, which will build to something later. The Sensational Spider-Man, which is movie 7, Sensational Spider-Man, The Sand and the Serpent. 2011 is the year it will take place. Peter is no longer in college. He is now working for two men. One Otto Octavius and one Kurt Connors. Early on, we see Peter take down one Flint Marco, who is Sandman. Then we have Kurt slowly becoming the Lizard. Sandman kind of... The way he's built in this is a lot more of the Thomas Hayden Church sort of thing, where he's just kind of robbing people to be a good dad. He's not a super villain. He just has superpowers and is a villain. He's not hurting people. His one rule is that he will not kill. Even with cops, he will not kill them, no matter what. The Lizard starts with the big, hulking, scary monster lizard and slowly reverts to a more skinny, tall, hidden monster. He goes from big, hulking beast to slasher movie. And I really like the opposite, because like in most things, he starts little and then he gets huge. I would prefer the opposite, because I think him being able to sneak around and get the jump on Peter is way scarier. Lizard and Sandman, I think they work well together, not only because one of them's a monster who will kill everything while being a revered scientist, while the other is somebody who's viewed as a monster who will kill anyone and is just a dad trying to figure things out. I think that's a really good mix. I think the idea of the Lizard and Sand works together really well. But yeah, it's fun. In the movie, Doc Ock is introduced as Peter's boss. He has also been hinted at throughout the entire series as being Peter's, like, role model. This is, like, the guy I want to be. Oh, yeah. I want Kurt to eat Billy. Kurt, as the giant hulking lizard, eats his son. Because that happens in the comics a couple times, and I think it's one of the genuine most fucked up things that has ever happened in comics. It is so fucked, it is so gross, and it gives a reason for Kurt to not try to work on himself. Because when Peter saves him with the serum and he goes to the raft, he's not gonna be in a space where he can work on himself. He's not going to be in a space where he can find peace. Also introduce Miles. At this point, Miles is... During this movie, Miles is like 14. He has not been bitten yet. He is introduced as somebody that Peter is tutoring as a like way to make extra money. And I think that's fun. I like that idea. I like them having a relationship before they become Spider-Man together. Or Spider-Man apart. But introduce Miles and show that he's like almost as smart as Peter already at like 14. So there's that. Then we get another show, Ultimate Spider-Man, which is the Miles show. It's going to be from 2011 to 2012. It's going to be him learning to be Spider-Man. It's going to be him doing a buddy cop with Daredevil, which I think would be super fucking cool. I think Miles and Daredevil should be associated a bit more. We get the return of Shocker. We get the introduction of Kingpin, and the introduction of the Prowler. Also, close to the end of the series, we get a moment where Miles and Peter, like, kind of figure each other out. Then we get the sensational Spider-Man Behind the Mask, which is movie 8. Takes place in 2014. Dr. Octopus is the main villain. He is the first villain to figure out who Spider-Man is. Other than Venom, but, like, that's, you know... Come on, that's not the same. Venom's cheating. Because the symbiote knew and told Eddie. Eddie didn't learn. This is the first time Spider-Man has had a villain know who he is. Because Ock is that fucking smart. Peter's not like hiding that from Doc. There's also Rhino in the film. Rhino and Ock basically take each other out because Brawn and Brain fight. Rhino's like genuinely apologetic at the end. He talks to Peter and he talks about being forced to be this monster. He talks about the experiments that they did on him whenever he got to America. He talks about how he runs through walls and shit because nobody can open a door for him. There's no options for him anywhere. And Peter is going to work with him a lot. In future films and stuff, we're going to see Peter and sometimes Miles with him going to talk with Rhino as Spider-Man. They don't do it as Peter and Miles, because that's... Why the fuck would you go in the raft? But there's that. I think the Doc Ock run in this should be treated like it was in the Insomniac games, where it's like a genuine fatherly relationship between Peter and Otto. Peter has looked up to Otto since he was a kid, and I love that. So there's that. Spider-Man 9, The Sinister Six, takes place in 2017. Peter, in this film, pseudo-retires. He's not gone forever, but like he's like, Miles, you are Spider-Man. And that's going to be a big plot point for really the rest of the Spider-Man stuff, is Miles, you're not Miles Morales, you're Spider-Man. So Eddie comes back as Venom, and he's in control, and he helps with the Sinister Six. The Sinister Six being Doc Ock, the Vulture, Doc Ock, who's back because he wants revenge against Peter. He has not told the others who Peter is. Vulture, who is kind of just doing the same thing he did originally, but with more scientific minds helping him. Lizard, who was forced to become the Lizard. Kurt is not in charge of who he is currently. Scorpion, who, wants revenge on Peter because, you paralyzed me, bitch. Goblin, who has been kind of forced to come back. Norman doesn't remember becoming the Goblin. That's a plot point that is nailed down, is that Norman does not remember being the Goblin. So whenever it happens again, he's not in control whatsoever. Goblin almost kills Felicia, and then she's saved by Miles. Almost kills Eddie, because he pulls the symbiote away from him. Peter dons it for like one moment to beat the fuck out of the Goblin. Then there is a Miles and Peter team up against Ock, Vulture, Lizard, Scorpion, and Shocker, and they fuck them up. It's a really fun, it's all about them, working together. And there's a point where Shocker's blasting the fuck out of Peter, and Miles kind of unlocks his Venom Blast shit. Which it won't be called Venom Blast in this, because that's confusing. But that happens. They beat the Sinister Six, and Peter retires. Pretty much for good. The next film takes place in 2018. It is The Ultimate Spider-Man Kingpin's Wrath. I wonder who this movie's about. It's Miles' first movie. He teams up with Daredevil through the first half of it, but not for the whole thing, because I want Miles to be treated like he is Spider-Man. He doesn't always need help. He'll take it, but he doesn't need it all the time. It's a Kingpin movie. I don't know what else to say. The next show is Silk, which is a Cindy Moon show. Takes place in 2016 and 2017. Introduce Cindy, show how, different she is to Peter or Miles. And it takes place in Korea. My version of Cindy is going to be Korean born, because I feel like having just everyone in New York be Spider-Man gets like tedious after a bit. And she has Korean like descent and whatnot, so like I felt like it wasn't too weird to move her to be from there. And I want the Mandarin as its main villain, as he is the dictator of Korea. He is trying to start a war against. He wants to start a war against America, who the president is currently General Thunderbolt Ross. So there's that. Next film is Ultimate Spider-Man: Friend or Foe. Movie 11 takes place in 2019. It's Miles' second film. It is the beginning of Miles and Cindy working together. They will grow to be an item. The two main villains in it are Crossbones, who came back from Captain America, and the Prowler. The Spot shows up as like just a henchman. I like that Spider-Verse is making him a big deal. I don't want to take that from them. But the Spot shows up, and he is treated like a bitch. But Crossbones is kind of working with someone else against. We're hinted at Chameleon. Crossbones is working with them to force the Prowler to help. Prowler and Miles are going to have some fucking moments. The next film is movie 12, takes place in 2020. It's Miles, Silk, Venom, Black Cat, and Peter versus Carnage. Peter is fully done after this film, and Venom is killed by Cletus. Miles and Cindy take a moment to talk about things, and Cindy takes a break for just a minute, not forever. She's going to take a little bit of a break from being a Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, whatever, just for a little bit. She will come back. She's not done. She's also still with Miles. Also, Peter and Kat have a child. She is named after May. She's Mayday. Haha. Comic books. Next film is The Superior Spider-Man, which is Miles and Silk. She shows up like halfway through, working together against the Hobgoblin and the Chameleon. The Hobgoblin is going to kind of take place of where Ock was in the normal Superior Spider-Man storyline. He is going to take Miles' body. In the Superior Spider-Man show, which will take place in 2022 to 2024, Hobgoblin is in Miles' body, and he is trying to be a hero. Because Hobgoblin's life was destroyed by a Spider-Man. So he wanted to prove that he could be Spider-Man without destroying people's lives. Mr. Negative is your main villain throughout this show. Hobgoblin is going to take this time to learn to be Spider-Man, and he kind of has that Dr. Ock character arc. After that, we get to The Amazing Spider-Man, which is movie 14, which takes place in 2025. We have Hobgoblin, who ends up giving Miles his body back about halfway through the film. Cindy and Miles are perfect for each other. Again, they are like a great team. They're great romantically, and they work together as Spider-Man better than Miles and Peter did. The Hammerhead Gang is the main villain. Secondary is going to be Mindworm. Mindworm's a really rough villain to like try to adapt. Because in some comics, it's like he's just kind of a guy who has really shit stuff happen to him. And like sometimes he'll pose as like a homeless guy. And that as a villain is kind of like spooky to me. Because Spider-Man is so about the people of New York. And he's so about the people of New York. He's so about the people that are around him. Spider-Man as a mantra is all about people. So the idea of just an innocent person becoming a villain, the idea of it being a homeless guy, like all of that is like really fucked for a Spider-Man character. They deal with all of it. The Hammerhead Gang gets taken care of. Hammerhead worked under Kingpin, so he didn't just build a gang on his own, and that's something that is going to be like of of discussion is that the members of his gang are going to kind of talk shit about him, and that leads to his downfall. In the post-credit scene of this movie, Deadpool shows up and kind of like shoots little shitty jabs at Miles, like little like rude shit that he can say. And then movie 15 is Spider-Man x Deadpool. Takes place in 2027. Miles, Cindy, and Wade are going to work together. The main villain is going to be the Taskmaster, with the Juggernaut being his like secondary lackey. Wade is going to bully the fuck out of Miles. Wait, no, Taskmaster's not in this movie. Is he? No, he's not in this. What the fuck? That's not right. I don't know why he's in that. It's not supposed to be Taskmaster. I don't know why it's Taskmaster. It's supposed to be like a, Oh no. I'm bad at things. Pretend I knew what I was talking about. Long story short, throughout the movie, Wade is gonna bully Cindy and bully Miles and say things like, "You're not who I expected to work with," talking about wanting to be with Peter. But towards the end of the movie, Wade is gonna fail. Wade's gonna fail, whereas Cindy and Miles are gonna succeed. Miles specifically is going to take the villain head on and win. And by the end, Wade is going to see them as the Spider-Man, and he's going to see Miles as the Spider-Man. Which is something that's really important to me with a Miles storyline, is he's not Spider-Boy. He's not Peter's protege, he's Spider-Man. And I think Deadpool, who is a fourth wall breaking character and who jabs at that sort of stuff, I think him accepting Miles as Spider-Man is so, like, so fucking cool. I spent a lot more time on Spider-Man than anything else, and I apologize for that. Fantastic Four movie. They have the first movie, which takes place in 1990. The backstory for the team. Main villain is going to be Ego, the Living Planet. We're also going to have a very friendly and like healthy rivalry between Reed and Victor Von Doom. The movie's just labeled as The Fantastic Four. Ego's the Living Planet, and they're going to beat him, but that's going to lead to some shenanigans later. Fantastic Four Accused is the second movie. It takes place in 1995. The Four are taken to a planet in another galaxy. This happens by this big portal, where Ronan the Accuser is going to tell them that they are in deep trouble for their intergalactic trespassing and murder of Ego, the Living Planet. They are placed into this prison. Obviously, they escape, but that half of the movie is kind of built like a Prison Break movie. It's built up as them figuring out how to get out of this place that is made for people with these powers and such. I think that's fun. They defeat Ronan. Meanwhile, he has the Space Stone. Reed returns and has a conversation with Victor. Victor reveals that when the portal disappeared, it disfigured him, because he was in the room with him, but he wasn't taken. He was kind of halfway through it when it turned on and when it went off. It scarred his face, like, just horribly, and it did damage to pretty much all of the skin on the front of his body. So that sets up some stuff. Fantastic Four Conquered, which is movie 3, takes place in 2002, and is about Kang the Conqueror. He attacks the group, they defeat him easily, but another Kang shows up, and another, and another, and another. And then they have this big war-style battle where it is the four of them versus thousands of Kangs. They later fight the true Kang, who has the Time Stone, and they win. But just narrowly. And then it's revealed that Kang worked for someone else, someone from space, and that wasn't a real person. They were all, like, clones. There is no real Kang in this universe. Obviously, that's very, like, not descriptive, and there's not a whole lot to go off of there, but, like, you can get the idea. And then, 2007, we have the Silver Surfer. Fantastic Four: Legend of the Silver Surfer, which takes place in 2007. The Silver Surfer will get the help from the Fantastic Four to get information on the Mad Titan. They are not told who he is. We do not know who the Mad Titan is. Obviously, we as fans are, like, knowledgeable. We know. But they don't. They will face the Black Order, and they will win. They will see one glimpse of Thanos. Just one smile. And then at the end of the film, Ben, Silver Surfer, and Reed all turn to dust. what the fuck? Um, that there was also a thing like that for in Captain America, in at the end of Captain America and the Falcon, the show. Um, Steve and Nick Fury both turn to dust, and then there's more of that, I believe. Yeah. So next is the X-Men. We have the Uncanny X-Men, which is movie 1, which takes place in the 1970s. Magneto, Professor X, Logan, Storm, and Mystique are a task force by the American government. The main villain is Sabretooth, alongside Toad and Pyro. Close to the end, Magneto is told what these people have done, the damages they have caused to mutant kind, and he kills Toad, and is told to go on a run by the rest of his team. The government shows up, and Magneto is labeled as dead. He is not, obviously, but he runs away after doing this, as to not be prosecuted by the American government. Then, in 1978, we have X-Men Evolved, a show. Charles has opened a school for mutants. Logan, Mystique, Storm, and Charles are teachers. We're introduced to Beast, Iceman, Thunderbird, and Quicksilver. They're all between 14 and 20. The main villain in this is mostly just the government. The show is less action, more story, and world building. So it's mostly just building up that, telling stories of the group back in the day, and talking about the history between Charles and Magneto, treating Magneto like he doesn't exist still, like he's dead. Talking about what the government has done for them and what they haven't. It's a big political build-up thing. X-Men Mutant Massacre is movie 2. In 1983, Magneto returns by committing a terroristic attack to large government buildings. This happens in 3 or 4 different big buildings. This sparks a war between the United Nations and Magneto's team of Juggernaut, Magneto, Pyro, Angel, Mystique, and a young girl who's maybe 6 years old, Jean Grey. The X-Men stop Magneto and take Jean to a safe place, offering safety for the others. They refuse. So they take Jean to take care of her. They offer the rest of the mutants a safe place. They say no. The government then says that the X-Men are the most wanted people in the world, which is kind of a big deal whenever they used to be your task force. X-Men Apocalypse. In 1987, as the X-Men are... Did I fuck up? No, that's right. In 1987, as the X-Men are hiding from the government, a portal opens. Apocalypse exits. He is beaten, he is bloody, and he asks for help. He says he's from the future, and that the world is almost entirely destroyed by Jean Grey. At this point, Jean is hardly 10 years old, and the X-Men are not okay with the plan to kill her, so they fight Apocalypse, and even in this battered state, he destroys them. Later on, in the final battle, an angry Jean kills Apocalypse and destroys the entire White House where the battle is happening. Also, when Apocalypse is killed, the Power Stone leaves his body, going off to a planet outside our galaxy. I like the idea of them being somewhat associated with... I like the idea of Apocalypse being associated with power, and the idea that ever since, like, however long ago he existed, having the Power Stone. I also like the idea that he comes from the future instead of from the past. A lot of times Apocalypse comes from the past, and that's weird. Sometimes he comes from the future, and I prefer that. And I like the idea that our universe that we're in doesn't even have all the Infinity Stones. One had to come from out of, like, the future. I think that's fun. Ultimate X-Men, 2005. Jean Grey is now the leader of the X-Men. She very rarely uses her powers, as it causes earthquakes every time. We are introduced to her boyfriend, who ends up being Cyclops. The team of Jean, Cyclops, Beast, Nightcrawler, and Logan take on the team of Magneto, Mystique, Juggernaut, and Laura, the daughter of Logan. The X-Men win, but Beast dies at the hands of Laura. Logan holds him while he dies before taking Laura down, and they leave. They win, but then Logan and Laura disappear. Then we get The Wolverine Show, which takes place between 2005 and 2007. It's a Logan and Laura show. It's treated a lot like a buddy cop, where Logan is kind of teaching Laura how to be less bad, I guess. He's still not perfect, but, like, they're teaching him. The main villain is a returning Sabretooth. Laura learns to love her father, as Logan learns to love her. He gives her the mantle of the Wolverine. And at the end, we get a short montage of every mutant except for Laura, Cyclops, and Magneto turning to dust. Then we have X-Men Extinction. 2008, Magneto turns himself into Charles. Logan and Laura return. The main villain is a Jean Grey who slowly turns to Dark Phoenix. She is stopped by the Scarlet Witch, who joins her older brother Quicksilver. In the final battle, Jean accidentally kills Charles. I think the idea of Jean dealing with that, and in the final battle, her harms the person who has protected her the longest, is kind of a big deal. I think that matters. Then we get to the next show, which is Messiah Complex. Magneto has given up on life after the death of Charles. He begs to be left alone, but everyone tries to prod information from him. We get segments that are kind of just therapy sessions for Magneto. We hear stories of their time during the Holocaust. We hear stories of how Charles lost the ability to use his legs. We hear of them learning how to use their powers for good. We hear of what caused Magneto to do terrible things. We learn everything about them that you can learn. Then we get to X-Men 6, Fall of the Mutants. Magneto leads Cyclops, Nightcrawler, Logan, Laura, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and the Juggernaut against the Blob. They very easily demolish him. This X-Men group is a bit more edgy. They're not okay with murder, but they will maim and destroy. The real villain of the film currently is the President, who's a member of Hydra. They get help from the Howling Commandos. So the final battle is Magneto, Logan, and Steve Rogers versus President Ronald Reiner, which is the Red Skull with the Power Stone. Which I don't know if you could pick up on the fact that he stole that, but he stole that. It is because there was the Power Stone that came from the future, and then there's the one that sits in the past. And nobody could find it during the present because Red Skull had it whenever he was kind of in between existing. But I think that's fun. The final battle being these three old heads of Steve Rogers, who was alive during the war, Magneto, who was alive during the war, and Logan, who was alive during the war, versus Red Skull, it's like all these old heads. I thought that was really cool. Next setup is Thor. The first movie is just called Thor. Movie 1, the year is 150. A backstory is mostly about Thor's relationship with Loki, his relationship with Odin, and his relationship with the woman who will become his wife, Sif. A war happens between the giants and the gods. The final battle ends with Odin dying at the hands of, I don't know how to say it, Bergelmir maybe? Bergelmir. Thor and Loki both go apeshit and they attack. Thor accidentally calls Mjolnir, because at this point neither of them had it. As him and his brother kill all the giants, it's revealed that Loki is half-giant. Next movie is The Mighty Thor. The year is 300. Thor and Loki have to fight Gorr, who wants revenge for the gods. Gorr kills dozens of gods before finding Thor and almost beating him. Loki takes a relic, the Reality Stone. Loki sees a reality where he met his dad, a reality where Odin lived, in a world where he held Mjolnir. He hears a very deep voice say, "It can all be yours." Loki and Thor imprison Gorr. Loki gives the stone to Thor and says he's sorry for stealing it. Thor smiles, pats him on the back, and the film ends. But in the post-credits, it shows Loki talking to someone with that deep voice. And then the third Thor film is Ragnarok. Year is 2007. Ragnarok is coming. Loki causes it by accident and releases Hela. Their godly world is almost destroyed until Loki uses the Reality Stone to kill Hela, and Loki is sat alone. The voice speaks to Loki as a large man steps out of a portal, his big golden gauntlet all we can see. It slowly pulls up the Reality Stone, and he says, "Thank you." Mere seconds later, every god but Loki is turned to dust. The only god left is Loki. He lifts Mjolnir as he screams out, which is pretty cool, boy. Then we have a Silver Surfer film, which takes place in the year 1200. Silver Surfer is a cosmic being, one that works for Galactus. We are never shown Galactus on screen, only hear his voice, see his hands, and see planets disappearing as he goes to them. The Surfer has a fight with Ego and Ronan. This is before Ronan or Ego have fought the Fantastic Four. He fights both of them at the same time, and he loses. And then he looks around the universe to find someone who can help. Which then leads to Legend of the Silver Surfer, where he works with the people who inevitably beat Ronan and Ego. Then we get to the Hulk movies, which I like. 1990, we have The Incredible Hulk. Bruce Banner's backstory The main villain is just General Ross. There's no supervillain. There's no big monster. It's just Bruce versus the government. At the end, Bruce turns himself in after pretty much destroying the entirety of Dayton, Ohio. He just fucking demolishes it all and turns himself in. Then we have movie 2, The Incredible Hulk Led Astray, which takes place in 94, where Hulk escapes custody. The main leader is the villain, who has the Mind Stone. The side villain is General Ross. Hulk quite literally rips the leader in half. Like, just fully in half. Ross lets him go because he cares for Bruce. Bruce has been able to control himself a little better. He's been able to control the Hulk. So there's that. So there's that situation. Ross lets him go because he cares. In 99, we have movie 3, The Immortal Hulk. Bruce hasn't been Hulk in a full year. General Ross is purposely telling his army the wrong information as to let Bruce free. The main villain is the Abomination. While fighting Abomination, Hulk accidentally kills Betty. Bruce is destroyed by this. He reverts back to being Bruce, and he just falls. Abomination's done, and Bruce is just sitting there. As General Ross comes in, he aims his gun at Banner's head, goes to pull the trigger, but Hulk takes over, bites the bullet, and leaves. It is now 2002. It has been a minute. This is Hulk versus Wolverine, which I think is fun. Bruce keeps losing control. He can hardly think without changing. Pretty much, we're told that the entire, 3-year period it has been since the last film, Bruce has not been outside of Hulk mode. He has been Hulk since. He has had, 1 or 2 slip-ups where Bruce comes out, gets pissed, becomes Hulk. There is no real villain. It's just Hulk versus Wolverine. There's no team-up. There's no, There's no thing where they have to fight a stronger villain. It's just Hulk versus Wolverine for, an hour. The film ends with Bruce reverting back into Bruce, finally, as he cries, asking Logan to kill him to take away the pain. Logan is going to very reluctantly try to do this, but the Hulk takes over and just fucking rips Logan in half. Mid-credit scene is going to show Logan crawling away, and then the post-credit scene is going to be one red eye, as General Ross says, once and for all. Then, 2007, we have the 5th Hulk movie, Incredible Hulk, Seeing Red. This is Hulk versus Red Hulk. Ross is going to use his Bruce blood to make himself into the Red Hulk. The ending is going to be Hulk choking Ross the fuck out. Bruce is going to take over and stop. Ross stands up as the Red Hulk and lifts his hands to smash, but he can't do it. He loved Bruce. He knows Bruce wasn't in control. They share a silent moment, and during this, Bruce turns to dust. All of these dust moments lead to the first Avengers film, Avengers: Ashes of Infinity. The film takes place between 2007 and 2008. The only superheroes left are Spider-Man, the Falcon, the Wolverine, who is Laura, Sue and Johnny Storm, Red Hulk, Magneto, Cyclops, and Loki. That is all that remains of our heroes. They have watched everyone they love turn to dust. They have tracked down the Mad Titan for an epic battle. Near the end, they bring back all the people lost in the snap. The final battle is Peter, Thor, Loki, Laura, the 2 Hulks, Reed Richards, versus Thanos. They win, but it's at the cost of Loki's life, as he's the one to get the final blow on Thanos after sneaking up on him, using the stones, but it also kills him. Everyone takes a moment to show respect. Everyone except for Bucky, who is still somewhat scrambled at this point and not really in his own headspace. Logan, who had all of his memories erased because his fucking brain was exploded and he healed it back without getting his memories. And Spider-Man, who at this point is still taken over by the symbiote. This version of Peter is he lost Gwen. He isn't currently relationed with Harry. Aunt May died in the snap. Scorpion disappeared in the snap, so he couldn't get revenge for Kraven. Black Cat disappeared in the snap. Everything he ever had was gone. This Spider-Man does not care. He does not care that Loki's dead. He's looking for his friends and for his family, and he doesn't find them until his next movie. So there's that. And for now, that's what I have written. I would like to do more in, like, I probably won't do it for a minute, or I won't post it immediately. But, like, I would like to do an individual Spider-Man video, an individual Cap video, an individual Hulk video, where I go way more in-depth on the stories and stuff. And I plan on doing that. But there's my stupid pitches for my little cinematic universe. I would want to do more. I understand that, like, there's a lot. There's, like, 17 Spider-Man things, and, like, one Silver Surfer movie or whatever, so, like, I need to do more for individual things. But there's that. There's that. There's where that's at. Thank you guys so much. If you have any notes whatsoever, whether it be creative criticism, or if it's something about something you enjoyed, something you didn't, if it's a note of, like, if you think there's a character that I left out, or if there's a character I overused, if there's anything like that, comment. I will genuinely read, I will genuinely think about it, I will genuinely talk back. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for all your support. I'm going to shut the fuck up and let you go. Bye-bye.